Are you unsure where to start with your architecture design project? Are you overwhelmed by information and the brief and requirements and the client and precedents and diagrams and brainstorming and what to do first? Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, the best place for students and new practitioners of architecture. I'm Liz Watt, and in today's video, I'm going to walk through the 9 different aspects of design that apply to every single architecture project, with tips and checklists so you can get started right away. If this interests you, then keep on watching. Trying to sort through all the information at the start of a project can be a little bit overwhelming. There's stuff everywhere. Development of an architectural design requires 2 different types of activities that kind of run in parallel in the early stages of design. There's the objective, which is gathering data, information, and research about the aspects of the project. Then there's the subjective, which is analysis, options, strategies, and responses to that data, information, and research. Design is not a linear process in that we complete one task, then move on to the next, and then the next, and the next. We constantly sort of need to revisit. We move forward, we move sideways, then back a few steps, testing and experimenting until we can put all the pieces together. There are 9 key aspects that can be considered in the early stages of a project that all feed into developing the design. They are not the design, but they each contribute in their own way to the final design and outcome. Each aspect of design outlined here requires objective research and data and information gathering, and then a more subjective analysis and information. Let's start with the brief. So the first step is to review the project brief in as much detail as possible. The project brief will include information about the design, the process, and the overall project, such as project details. So details of the location, climate, and overall project requirements, existing conditions, givens, assumptions, opportunities, or constraints about the site, client, user, or any other aspect of design. Some of these can begin to be allocated to other areas of design. Then there's the project vision and objectives. So what the client wants to achieve from the project. This may include quantitative goals that can be measured, or more qualitative ideals that are achieved through the experience and emotions of the end user. There's a scope of services in terms of design. So what exactly you are expected to do and provide in terms of design, documentation, and deliverables. Then there's the scope of works of the project. This is the extent of the project in broad terms of the typology, the size, is it a new build, renovation, or restoration, and are there any demolition works? Then there's the time frame and schedule. So how long have you got to complete the project, and what are the milestones or submissions along the way? And finally, the project cost and fees. So the overall cost of a project and the budget you need to work within, and the fees for your services. In practice, you may be part of the process of creating the brief, but at university, it's normally given to you, and it won't include all these things. To review the brief, grab a pen and highlighter and start to identify all the requirements that apply to the project design. One thing to look out for is any information with a number that indicates size, quantity, or timeframes. The brief can start as a broad document and may be developed over time to capture further detail of all the project and client requirements, such as program or site constraints, just all in one place. The brief can be a living document that needs to be easily accessible and referred to often to make sure your design is complying with all the project, process, and design requirements. The second aspect we consider is context of the site and existing conditions. So this includes the bounded site area that your project can be designed within. The site, existing conditions, as well as surrounding conditions that need to be recorded and analysed. Information about the site is gathered and recorded in 2 ways. Firstly, through a desktop study of plans, drawings, reports, documents, or photographs, and then a physical site visit where you get to record the site in great detail and actually experience it. Analysis of the site can be done by considering this information in 2 ways. The first approach to analysis includes considering hard or objective data, so physical conditions that do not change, such as general activities and patterns, the location, dimensions, existing structures on the site, the geography, natural features, topography, contours, vegetation, soils and water, and the climate, sun, shadow, temperature, wind, precipitation, rain or snow. Then there's the soft or subjective data, which is the qualities, characteristics and sensory aspects of the site that can change and perhaps be viewed in different ways, including views in and out, sound, noise, site features, on-site activities and patterns, security, protection or safety, circulation and movement, paths or entry or exit points. This is about the things that only exist when humans are in and moving around the site. The second approach to analysis includes the concept of mega, macro and micro. So mega starts with the larger landscape beyond the site and into the city, urban or rural surrounds. Then we come down to the macro, which is the site itself and the immediate or adjacent surrounds. And then we zoom right into the micro, which is the detailed elements, character and qualities within the site. Analysis can be delved into much deeper, and the subjective and objective data can be considered at the mega, macro and micro scales. Site analysis is about finding patterns, qualities, opportunities and constraints in and around the site that can help guide the concept and design decisions. The third aspect is context, but this time of the user. So the user is the person or people or groups of people who will use and experience the final project. These may be different from the client. So for example, a board of a university may be the client for a new building, but the users are staff, students and visitors. The client may not ever intend to use the building. It's important to differentiate between the needs and the desires of the client and the needs and the desires of the different users. Aspects of the different users to consider include the user groups. So what are the unique characteristics and qualities of these people? Their physical form, personalities and psychology, identities, roles, relevant activities, hobbies, interests and movements. There's the demographic aspects, which include the socioeconomic, cultural and economic context. And finally, there's the experiential aspect. So what the user wants to sense and experience and feel as they move through the project or building or structure. What do they want to hear, taste, smell, see and touch? And finally, the aspirations, so the vision, desires and hope for the project. The fourth consideration is the architectural program. The architectural program refers to the functional, operational and spatial requirements of the project. So these may be developed in the initial brief or through discussions with the client and users about their practical requirements, needs and the things that they want. It can be considered a more practical sort of summary of user considerations, but it will include a lot more things that they don't think of that a building needs to function. So the practical and functional considerations is basically a list of required spaces to include area or dimensions, number of people per space, the equipment, furniture or vehicles to be included in the space, and activities and movement to be undertaken in the space. Then we move on to the fifth aspect, typology. So the typology is the type of building or structure you're being asked to design. For example, a house, a hospital, a school, a city or a university campus master plan, a shopping centre or an office or a high-rise. This is where it may be important to consider precedents and study examples of similar work to determine good examples and bad examples, what works and what does not work, and what is the current best practice for this type of project. Consideration can be given to examples in the local areas as well as on a broader national or international scale. The sixth consideration is formal design elements and principles. So these are used as the design actually starts to develop and all this stuff starts to feed together to start to create spaces and arrange spaces in response to all the project's requirements. Elements of architectural design are the fundamental components or pieces that are used in different ways in all design. So they include things like 3D or spatial design elements such as points, lines, planes, forms or volumes and space. The 2D design elements such as shape, color, texture, scale and proportion, as well as experiential sensations such as light, view, touch, sound and smell. Now, principles of architectural design are the way these different elements are then arranged. So they include enclosure, which is the qualities of surfaces, edges and openings. It includes organization of form and space, such as spatial relationships, organizations such as linear, grid, centralized, clustered or radial organizations, and the movement through the space. So consideration of approach and entry, the path and access, and the sequence of spaces. Then there's general design principles, which which are used in all types of design and include things like axis, symmetry, hierarchy, datum, rhythm, repetition, and transformation. The seventh consideration is material and technology. So as you gather information about the typology, the site, the user, the program, and you start to develop the design with formal elements and principles, you'll also start to get ideas about the material and technology that could be used. So considerations include material properties such as the aesthetics, durability, physical, mechanical, chemical, electrical, magnetic, and thermal qualities. You want to consider sustainability. So is this material good for you, good for other people, and good for the planet? What impact does the use of the material have? What is the structure and level of enclosure required? And how does this affect the health, safety, and welfare of the users? You also want to consider the external environment and the protection and the comfort from the external climate and the elements in your particular location. Then we move on to the eighth consideration, which is concept. The concept is an idea or a thought conceived in the mind about the physical qualities and characteristics of the architectural project or structure and what it might be or be like or is about. So it normally comes during the early stages of the project and is used as a reference or framework to then guide all design decisions. A concept will usually draw from or respond to one or more of the aspects of design that we've already talked about. A concept can either be one strong idea or a series of complementary smaller ideas that work together across one or several themes. A concept might come quite clearly to the designer as a clear idea to be explored for that particular project, or a designer may develop a certain interest in one area that is applied to all their work. For example, some architects have a focus on sustainability or certain materials or an aesthetic style or theme that they apply to all their work as a growing body of exploration, and the clients come to them for that. The most successful projects have a clear concept that can be seen, identified, and described simply and easily and recognized in the design. Our final and ninth consideration is collaboration, which is the process of working with other people on a project. So the benefits of collaboration are that you are exposed to different ideas and perspectives about the project, your work, and the way the design could proceed. At university, collaboration comes from presentations, discussions, and feedback with tutors and other students. In practice, collaboration comes from discussions with peers, other architectural and design team members, authorities such as councils or utilities, water, gas, or electricity providers, and consultants such as your structural, electrical, or mechanical engineers, or interior designers or landscape designers. Input from the collaboration will be drawn from all the different aspects of design talked about here. Each person on the team may see things differently and have different ideas. So where do we go next? Well, research and information gathering provides clear constraints and opportunities and clarifies the bounds you must work within and can stretch beyond. Once you've gathered as much information as possible, you can start to develop and explore a site strategy, concept, and then a design response. The design process will start to bring some order to all the preliminary information by testing different options, strategies, and responses. The design development process becomes a real juggling act of all the different considerations we've talked about, so that everything is included and considered with little or no compromise in the very best possible design solution. If you have any questions or thoughts about the architecture design process or any of these aspects talked about here, please let me know in the comments or head over to archimesh.com/askliz. If you want to know more, make sure you consider subscribing to this channel because I have a ton of content to share to help learning, studying, and practicing architecture easier and faster. While you wait for the next episode, make sure you check out some of my other work here or at archimesh.com. That's everything for today. I hope you found it helpful and that it gave you some clarity on how to approach your next design project. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.